Alrighty. Today is March 27th, and this is our this week's community edition setup session for anyone who's watching along the YouTube. Um, and for context for anyone else who's watching the recording, we've been doing these weekly setup sessions and been publishing recordings on YouTube, covering different ways that you can host your own version of hubs using Community Edition. Um, the sessions, the topics that we cover vary from week to week. But this week we'll be using the instance that we set up in our first setup session and the one that we improved with a custom client and some API keys and custom content security policies last week. And this week we'll be upgrading that existing instance with persistent volumes so that we can manage our data that we upload a little bit better. Um, just for reference for anyone who's watching or anyone who's in the room wondering how we set this one up. This is the quick start case study that we followed to get started. So our instance, I think, is pretty much up to date with all of the topics covered in here. Like I said, a few weeks ago, we went over just the basic setup process, and then last week we went over the topics covered in this update December 2023 about configuring admin settings and deploying custom apps. Awesome. And for this week, Hrithik is going to be helping us with persistent volumes. Hrithik is one of our Community Edition documentation awardees. There's his avatar right in front of mine. And Hrithik has been helping document the Community Edition setup process on DigitalOcean, and may cover a little bit of that here or next week. But this week is going to help us upgrade our instance on GCP. So thank you, Hrithik, in advance. I'll be sharing my screen both in the room, but I'm also recording my screen and that's what people will see published. So Hrithik, what sounds best to you? Would you like to just kind of watch my screen and follow along, or would you also like to share your screen and I can try and follow along, switch back and forth between your screen and my screen?
Yeah. So I think I will watch your screen, and while I see that, I will try to explain where we are using the persistent volume and where are we modifying things up. And while you show that those things, I will be able to add more explanations to give a clarity to our viewers.
Wonderful. So maybe to start, what should we know about persistent volumes? We've touched on them in a in previous sessions, but we have this problem, right, with our existing instance. Basically, if we delete any of our pods in our existing instance, let me see if I have that here. Yeah, this should be, I'm using Lens today to kind of look at my instance, but um, this one is set up on the URL devmoran.com. But if I delete, especially this PGSQL pod, and then respawn it, it's quite likely that my instance will not be able to find the data that I have stored on my virtual machine. So, Hrithik, how do persistent volumes help with that?
Yeah. So, as you spoke about pods, we know that pods are the building blocks of our application. And as we have several pods, the two pods which are concerned with storing data is the number one reticulum, which is our backend server, and number two is the PGSQL, which is the Postgres database itself. So our reticulum stores the data in, for example, whoever users are signing in, so they are signing, they need a token, right? So the tokens and who are all the admins and all the configuration that we do in our admin panel in our hubs, all the data that has to be in the reticulum is stored in one path. And all the databases think, for example, the spoke scenes, whatever scenes we are uploading in spoke, and some other things. These things are stored in Postgres database. So
Hmm.
what happens is, when, like right now, everything is stored in the pod itself. Like, it goes with the life cycle of the pod. So if the pod is deleted, the data also attempts to delete. But if the pod is deleted and replicated instantly, then the data doesn't get deleted. But
Hmm.
there is like a if there are changes in the events, the data gets deleted from the pod itself because it is a part of the pod. So think of it as a separate folder that you have, and you are like, your pod is a folder, and you are deleting the folder. So when you delete the folder, everything goes to a recycle bin for some time, and when
Hmm.
you are recreating the same folder, and if your data exists in the recycle bin, you can get the data. But
Hmm.
if with persistent volumes, we are solving this problem by adding a separate folder itself, like a separate folder away from the life cycle of pods. So if the pod is getting created, destroyed, or uh, terminated, whatever is happening with the pod, this path will still be always there until your node groups exist. Sorry, until your nodes exist. So as
Hmm.
we know earlier what node groups and nodes are, so Michael has showed earlier what node groups are and what nodes are. So this persistent volume, what we are attaching, will be part of the node. We are attaching it to the node. So now it will, instead of being part of the life cycle of the pod, it will be now part of life cycle of nodes. So
Hmm.
if you want to scale up, scale down, then you can create node groups in those nodes. Now when you scale these things, like for example, you create a new node group which is of more compute power and more memory and more storage. uh, so those things will have a separate life cycle now, because as our persistent volume is attached to the node. So in this session, we are going to look at taking the persistent volume away from the pod's life cycle and attaching it to the node
Awesome.
simply.
Yeah. And so to just kind of specify, hone in there, you're saying that say we have our instance and we're getting ready for a large event, we might need to change the instance type to be able to support more users, scale up our instance type, but then also we might need to create more virtual machines to be able to, so both horizontally and vertically scale. And if we try and do that without these persistent volumes, once we change these nodes, our instance isn't going to be able to find that data. So persistent volumes will help us, go through those transitions.
Exactly. Yes, persistent volume. No, the persistent volume will then be lost, but at least what benefit we have is our data is always persisting and not dependent on the pods. Like if your pods are failing, if
Gotcha.
your pods are not creating anything, then so right now we are just elevating our storage one layer above. We are moving it from the pod level, the storage to be from the pod life cycle to the node life cycle.
Hmm. I see.
And there are several more things what we can do with this, like for example, the Helm charts. What they do is they use FS file systems from AWS. So we can also use that. We can change it. We can use a block storage, or
Hmm.
but the thing with block storages is that they do not offer read and write both. Like not all storages offer that. For example, your S3 bucket is also a part of block storage. So they offer both read and write. Only thing, configuring it is bit more, is not a very straightforward process. So people go with using databases. They set up a database, and those credentials we can attach with persistent volumes. So for example, if you have 4 or 5 different community edition hosted versions, like if you have 4 or 5 different servers and all of them are pointing to the same database but obviously with a different username and password, so you can always keep the data forever with you, stored
Hmm.
in a database. And
Gotcha.
uh, every time you need to spin up the server, you can keep your database with you. You can pause the database when you don't need it. You can delete all the nodes and node groups. And when you again think that your event or your server needs to be online, you can create your own server again, because the data will be still pointed out to the servers. So you can
Hmm.
unpause your database and take your Kubernetes cluster online.
Gotcha. Very cool. So thank you for that intro, Rithik. Should we dive into actually trying to add a persistent volume claim?
Yeah, sure.
Um, and maybe it's worthwhile. Sorry for all of the exposition before we get into this, but we have a concept of a persistent volume and a persistent volume claim. Those are kind of the two terms that you'll hear a lot in today's session. Rithik, do you have a good explanation for the difference between a persistent volume and a persistent volume claim?
Yeah, for having a simple explanation about it is that your persistent volume is you are allocating storages. Like
Hmm.
you are creating a volume that, let's say, you create a persistent volume for 10 gigs of storage. Somewhere else you create for 7 gigs of storage. Somewhere else for like 5 gigs of storage. The lowest you can go is for 1 GB storage.
Hmm.
So when you do this, you have created a persistent volume, but you haven't claimed it. So your pod needs to define that you are claiming. You're trying to get that uh, volume into use. So your persistent volumes are created, but they are not used by you until you create a claim for that. Okay, like you have to claim it. So now persistent volume claims, you define a storage of how much you want the storage. So whatever storage you specify, your Kubernetes will try to find the persistent volume which is more than what you are asking for, should be equal to or more than what you are asking for. So suppose if I have two volumes, one of 7 GB, uh, 7 gigs of storage, and another one is for 10 gigs of storage. So your persistent volume claim, you can specify that you want 5 gigs of storage. You need it. Okay. So what this persistent volume claim will do is it will see that 7 gigs of storage is good for me. So it will use that. Whatever is more than or equal to what we need.
Hmm.
So that is the use of the persistent volume claim, and that is what we attach to our pod. That is what we define to the pod, because now the persistent volume is part of the node and it will be working. Uh, it will be staying with the node, but the persistent volume claim will be part of your pod pod
Gotcha.
lifecycle.
Gotcha. I've drawn a little image on the floor of so it seems like on the left we have storage, and then persistent volume is a way of partitioning that storage into different allocations, and then the persistent volume claim connects the pod to that persistent volume.
Cool.
Okay. Um, should we hop into trying to make it now?
Yeah, sure.
Let me check real quick. I think I may have played around with adding. Oh, yes, I did. So I did. just before this session started, play around with persistent volumes. I did not get it working though, but just as a heads up in case anyone sees some old persistent volumes and PVCs on there. I should probably just delete these honestly, but yeah, well, I'll just keep them in there so I don't mess anything up. But yeah, Rithik, take it away. What should I do first?
Yeah, you can delete it, but yeah, let us go directly without keeping, without doing anything there. So there are, as we spoke about different ways of storing the data. First one is the host path. So when you go to your Postgres pod definition in your hcc.yml file,
My
it is around,
PGSQL pod, or
yes, yes,
okay,
pgsql pod, yeah. So when you scroll down to the bottom, you see there is a volumes part. Yes.
yes.
So here we are defining the volumes, and above this you also have volume mounts, which comes by the name PostgreSQL data, which has its own mount path as well.
Hmm.
And below that we have volumes. So volumes is where the data is exactly being stored.
Gotcha.
Okay. And the host path you is the value which like the value inside the host path is temp pgsql data. So this is a directory which is created inside your node only. This is created inside our node, but it is attached with the pod.
Hmm.
And whatever data we are storing is stored here. Like this is used as our storage.
Gotcha.
So uh, first we go and we create a new file. Like we are trying to keep the hcc.yml as it is, and we
Okay.
are trying to create a new file, persistent volumes.yaml.
Persistent
That,
volumes dot YAML. Okay.
yeah, YAML.
And Rithik, I'm
And
drawing from the code you've sent me just in our Discord DM. Should I just copy and paste that and you can walk us through it? Or I let you tell me what to type out?
yeah, I think you can copy and paste the code. That has to be a
Gotcha.
good starting point.
Okay. So I've just done that. We can see API version 1, kind, persistent volume, metadata where we're naming our persistent volume, and then some specs in here as well. And then we also have a definition for persistent volume claim.
Okay. So, as we can see, one thing to note here is like there are few things that we can note and understand here. First is the storage capacity that we have allocated 10 gigs of storage. Yes. And which means that this is our volume. We have created a space. We have created and allocated a space with the name pgsql-pv. Line number 4, we can see that is our name that we have allocated for this. Then, as we go down to the access modes, we see read, write, many. So, why there are few other access modes like read, write, and read only, but we are giving it yes. Okay. So,
Sorry,
yeah,
I'm just showing people where they can find it in the docs.
yes. So, read, write once is one of the access modes, and
Anyway, I'll go back here.
yeah. So we have chosen read write many. here so that we have the freedom to read and write as many times. Like we have all the permissions, access modes with the permissions to read and write many times. Many times in the sense like many sockets could be open and something like this. We can search more about read write many to tell about users what this actually means.
Okay, let me see if I can read.
Yeah, what I found about is
Oh, here we go. Claims can request specific size and access modes. Read write once. Here are the docs here. Read write once. Read only many. Read write many, and then read write once pod.
yes. So we are choosing read write many, which means the volume can be mounted as read write by many nodes. So as we see that in our node groups, there will be many nodes. So we need the read write many so that all the nodes have the same persistent volumes access. Okay.
Got
And
it.
meanwhile, Imaginer has asked a question here in the chat.
Oh, I missed
Is
it.
the allocated is the allocated storage space changeable without losing data? So the storage space, which is the volumes part, this this is what we are creating. The persistent volume claim is what we are allocating. So the data will be lost because the persistent volume claim, so it is also like a one way setup. Like once we set up it once, we shouldn't change it again. That is what is intended here.
Mhm. I'm also looking at the storage class. I think someone who's setting up this up for the first time, Hrithik, do you know just running this YAML, will that be able to create the persistent volume, or will they have to set up their storage classes before that?
It depends on what the person needs. This creating a persistent volume is a easy step. They can take any uh, storage from here. Only thing they have to change here right away is the host path's path, which we are keeping it the same for our understanding, so that we can always fall back to without keeping it without. Yes, so this is the path that we kept the same as what we had, like the Postgres, like what we
Oh,
had
really?
earlier,
It
and the
looks a
retained
little bit,
policy.
Hrithik, it looks a little bit different. For here, I see mount data, whereas in Postgres, I see TMP Postgres SQL data.
Yeah, sorry. So this one was TMP PGSQL data. We can keep the same name because anyways it is going to be a directory. So what I found over the internet, I kept it the same because most of the people keep the data inside the mount path. Yeah, so this also
So,
works.
okay,
Yeah.
so I've changed that.
So another thing to know here was the persistent volume reclaim policy.
Hmm.
So when the node or the pod actually, when the pod is deleted, whoever pod is using this uh, persistent volume claim. So we have to understand that now persistent volume claim is a part of the pod cycle. So when the pod gets deleted, the persistent volume claim will also get deleted. So when there is no one to claim, like imagine you have a land and you have a owner. So the owner of the land is the persistent volume claim, and the land is the persistent volume. So if the owner dies, the land will be kept. Either the land has to go to some governing authority, or it has to be forgotten, deleted. Something has to be done there, right? So this is what the persistent volume reclaim policy comes into. It's like a will that you write for your volume. So after the persistent volume claim is removed from the pod, which is like when the pod is deleted, the persistent volume claim will be deleted. That means your volume uh, is as it is. Like your volume has all the data, but where will that data be? Because the data is not being used by anyone. Like you have to use the data somewhere. So there are several persistent volume reclaim policies. By default, it's the delete, and we have changed it to retain so that even if no one is using it, the data is still there,
Gotcha.
and we can use uh, while someone else reclaims the same volume, while some other persistent volume claim tries to reclaim the volume.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so this was all about the persistent volume part. Now going further to persistent volume claim, we have uh, we have also defined here, as you can see on the screen, and we have all the data as it is, and the name which matters here, because the kind here is persistent volume claim. So this name what we have passed in here, pgsql dash pvc.
Hmm.
So uh, now we will go back to your to our hcce.yml file.
Yes. Before we do that, Rithik, I should also say you've given the default namespace of HCCE. I'm just going to go ahead and put in the one that I'm using for all of my current pods, HCCE Mike
Yeah.
Moran, if that's okay.
Mhm.
Just to keep it in the same namespace.
Right.
Okay. So I'll go back to my YAML file. Here we go.
Mhm. And the host path, we have already added the host path inside our persistent volume claim. So
Hmm.
as we have a clear understanding here, what we have done is we have moved the data storage from the pod level to the node level. Okay.
So we can get rid
So
of this host path since we've specified it.
exactly. And instead of that, we will add a new property here, persistent volume claim, inside of the volume. Yeah. And inside this will be a claim name. Yes, so PGSQL PVC is the claim name that we are writing. So now this persistent volume claim will be part of our pod,
Hmm.
PGSQL.
Okay. Let
Yeah.
me see the end here.
So now while we create it, we will first apply the uh, persistent volume.yml.
Hmm.
Just like we do
Uh,
for HCCP, uh, yeah, here we will do, first we will have to apply the persistent volume.yml, because
oh, yes.
uh,
Sorry.
yeah, the reason why we are doing it, because while our pod goes to attach the persistent volume claim to itself, we want to make sure that the volume is also created and the claim also exists.
Okay. Should I go ahead and run this kubectl apply and then the file?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Something has happened. Okay, I see persistent volume and persistent volume claim created. If I look on here under the storage tab, I should be able to see it here. Yeah, this top one right here.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
17 seconds. Yeah.
What's next?
So, yes, we can see that already. Now we will simply apply our configurations to the hcce.yml file.
Let me make sure I have the right namespace that I'm using here. HCC Mike Moran. Okay, cool. So applying my configuration. Looks like it went through. Okay. What's the next step, Rithik? Do I need to cycle my pods?
Yes.
Oh,
So now your new pods will be recycled because the PGSQL has some changes, right?
so after doing that, I see now that only the PGSQL pod changed, which makes sense since we only put some changes to it. So that I see did go ahead and respawn.
Mhm.
Okay. Are we good, or I mean, I suppose I could test and see. Oh, internal server error. Wonderful.
Yeah, so we will have to wait for reticulum to spin up if it is not already started.
Gotcha. So should I maybe delete reticulum and have it come back up?
Mm, yes, let's do that.
Okay.
Although it's not needed, but while it's
Well,
503, it points out to the very same thing.
well, let's see because okay. I see an error here being printed that's a little bit new, but basically after redoing that, I'm now getting this error. Ret accounts does not exist. Uh, Session stats on Ret does not exist. App configs does not exist. So I'm seeing
Oh, okay.
a few errors.
Yes, this means we have to recycle the reticulum pod.
Okay, I will delete reticulum and it should automatically respawn. There we go. Just gonna look at the pod logs as it's coming back up. Okay. Um, Service unavailable, so maybe it needs a little bit longer.
Mhm. Yeah, sometimes it takes around 60 to 75 seconds to spin up.
Okay, I'm back in. I can tell I'm no longer signed in, so deleting my reticulum pod, as you were saying, deleted my what I'm assuming the token that it had issued when I had originally signed in. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
go back through. I have my email open on a separate window, so folks won't see that right here, but I'm gonna wait for that SMTP message to come through. Let's make sure it was sent correctly through here. Oh, am I getting an issue? No, I'm just it's moving a little bit slowly. Okay, I got my sign in link verifying. Okay. So is that it?
Yeah,
Wow.
this is it. Or-
So let's just take that then, Rithik, going back here. So what we just saw when I deleted this before the persistent volume was written was after deleting my reticulum pod, it no longer recognized my sign in. If we were to
Yeah,
delete the reticulum pod now, would it remember my sign in, or would that not be possible because that there's not a
yeah.
persistent volume
So,
claim?
yes, so that's a very great question. We have only set up persistent volume claims for PGSQL pod. As I said about, we have two storages. First is we have PGSQL, then we have reticulum pod. So for reticulum, we will have to create the same steps. Like we will have to do the persistent. We will have to create a persistent volume and a persistent volume claim and attach it to the reticulum pod to have those things in a persistent manner. So right now we have only stored and saved for Postgres, which means your Cs are safe. Uh, but
Okay. Let's
yeah,
test that then at least before we move on. Let's go to Hubs and grab a Steam URL. How about this one and try importing? Oh, see some sort of error in here.
no case clause.
Hmm.
It seems like a course issue.
Yeah, interesting. What can I see in here? Well, maybe instead of worrying about a cores issue real quick, I can just go to Spoke and publish a scene. Hopefully, there's no issues with that. Oh, yeah,
Uh,
interesting. Okay, I'm getting some weird cores errors.
yeah, this one was also an issue which I got to fix it
Okay,
because this is the terrain creator 1.glb file is pointed to the reticulum servers. As you can see in the model URL, it's upload dash prod.reticulum.io.
yes, this
Uh,
one down here.
yeah, so to fix this, in our spoke file, we have a creator.spoke. In your spoke code base, you have a creator.spoke, which is the default, and it's a very different repo, just like the hubs client repo. For the users, I'm saying that when we have a hubs client repo, yes. So Mozilla spoke, this is what we have.
Sorry, I'm just pulling it down. So Hrithik, to fix this, you had to publish your own version of Spoke.
uh, yeah,
Wow.
that is
Okay.
one thing. That is a long lasting solution, because after 31st March, sorry, 31st May, sorry for the wrong date.
No, it's okay.
After 31st May, we won't have the reticulum servers to serve the GLB file. So uh, even if you fix the course issue right now, after 31st May, you will still have a broken screen at this point.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Do you know what's causing these cores issues? I know deploying your own version of Spoke would fix the long-term issue,
Mhm.
but were you able to solve just this issue with cores?
Uh, yes, I think I solved this same issue with cores inside the spoke cores proxy settings by whitelisting this reticulum.io. But
Spoke
it was
cores
something that,
proxy. Is that in the configuration YAML file?
yeah, hcc.yml file.
So it's not an admin, it's in Spoke?
Yes, it's in spoke pods configuration where we have the cores. Yeah, scroll down a bit more. Yes.
Oh, here. Right.
Uh, yes. So you can just whitelist reticulum.io. I think that should be the fix.
Like this?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see if that fixes it. That's very strange that I haven't run into that issue yet, but let's see. Um, so I'm going to kubectl apply minus f .yaml mask. So I'm applying my.
Although,
Sorry.
yes. Yeah, no, so I was just trying to say that for this, there's a process, like we'll have to follow that. First we have to modify the dot spoke file that we have inside our repo, inside spoke. Then we will have to build the image, and after building the image, it actually gets to work.
I see. However, that's for the long term, right? Like deploying your own version of Spoke. This whitelisting the cores issue should fix our issue with being able to get that default terrain crater 1 GLB.
Yeah, right.
So let's see if that fixes it. That'll be a nice solution for anyone who's having trouble getting Spoke working out of the box. Hmm. So I'm still seeing some issues, but let me go back here to sign out, sign in. Any questions as we're waiting on this from folks in the audience? Who else here? Just our usual group. Let's go back to Spoke, create a new project. Huh. I'm still, yeah, still getting this error with the cores with the default server. Do you know if I need to do like uploads prod dot reticulum or give it a wildcard? I'm wondering if I need to do like star dot
uh,
or something.
yeah, I think yes, we should do that.
Let's see if just doing without the wildcard, but just uploads prod. Just convert
I
that.
think right now what it's showing is not related to course issue, but rather it's trying to say that the GLTF file doesn't is not a valid file. Which, if you open the file in a new tab, if you open the link in a new tab, you will definitely get a GLB,
Yeah.
which confirms it's a valid file. So to fix that, I thought that might be anyways a issue which will have to fix again after 31st. So
Okay.
yeah, I think
Well,
this
anyway,
fix
what
will be
I
sure.
what I did just now to fix it was I opened the uploads prod.reticulum URL, I downloaded the default crater scene, and then I uploaded it. So if we look at our model URL now, sorry, one
Yes.
moment. We should see now it's hosted on devmoran /files. So maybe let me mark down that we should try and go back and fix that cores issue. But if I go ahead and publish this, I'm just demonstrating Hrithik that I'm going back to demonstrating that the persistent volume claim worked. I've published this. Now if I delete my PGSQL pod and it spins back up, I should be able to see this scene again, right?
Right.
Okay, let's give that a try just to demonstrate for people who are watching.
Yeah. Also, we should have tried earlier to delete the pod without the persistent volume claim to just.
We should have to illustrate it. Anyway, they'll take our word for it. I think in a previous session we did show that, so um,
Oh, cool.
just waiting for Reticulum to come back up. So I deleted PGSQL and Reticulum.
Okay, so if you deleted reticulum, you will have to still sign in again.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and with that, the data will be. Uh, yeah, I think. Let's see.
Oh, deleting Reticulum 2 may have caused us to lose it. Oh, interesting. Okay, let's go back, log out. Come on. Where's my email? There it is. Okay. Okay. Interesting. So it looks like some of the data was lost. However, I still see this project, and if I go to assets, oh yeah, I can still see my Hrithik, my GLB file is still in there. It looks like maybe just the spoke data was lost.
Yeah, because spoke data is stored as reticle, I guess so.
I think
Gotcha.
it's
But
lost the
you'll be
database information or anything like that.
Yeah, well, let's try. So we can see some data has saved. This GLB file is still in there. And in fact, if I go back and I create a new project, I should be able to swap this out and see my file load. So we know that um, the GLB file loaded just by us adding a persistent volume to PGSQL. But Hrithik, we still have to add it to Reticulum, right?
yes. So for reticulum, we can make changes in the same file. I have made some changes. I can send it over to you.
Hmm. Maybe we can just
Uh,
do ret pv. I'll wait for you
right.
to.
Yeah.
I'll wait for you to share it, and then I'll post it in.
Yeah. So I've shared. So it's like the same things, red PV and red PVs.
Hmm.
So have you
Retain
modified?
ret storage data, and then
Yes.
you added a type here. Is that right?
Uh, type is directory or create.
Okay. Then ret pvc storage class manual.
Namespace. Yeah, you have changed that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then if we look in here at our ret, there's going to be a lot of ret in here. Let's
Yeah,
see.
you can search directly for host paths because that is what we are replacing.
Yes. Okay. I see here. Here's my reticulum configuration. I can see the big config map. So host path.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
have.
we can. So just since we've added it at the persistent volume level, I should be able to comment this outright and just do the same of adding persistent. What do I add here? Persistent volume claim?
Yeah, and colon, then the claim name
Hmm. What did I call it?
is red
Ret
PVC.
PVC. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So I flipped it out for reticulum, and I'm using the same path as the default here. So I'm going to kubectl apply -f persistent volumes.yaml to create the PVC.
Hmm.
If I look in here, I should now see a ret PVC and a ret PV in here. That's good. And now I just apply the updated hcce.yaml, right?
Yes, right. So with this, we have two volumes and two volume claims, and which we are adding to our life cycle,
2.
to the pod
Oh, gotcha.
increase.
Gotcha. Okay. Adding that now. Everything looks good. What happened? I see that reticulum is respawning here.
Okay, so here Imaginer has some doubts,
Okay.
uh, like questions. Why is different type needed for reticulum persistent volume?
So this one,
So did
directory
we?
or create right here.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Okay.
I can answer quick, just very quickly. Imaginer, since the in here we have specified, where is it? A namespace in here in the metadata for the PVC. Since it's specified here, I didn't need to add it in the command itself, but for hcce.yaml, a specific namespace isn't specified in the file. So I have to, with the command, tell Kubernetes which namespace to give this file to. So it's just because it's written in the file for the persistent volumes.yaml, but not for the hcce.yaml.
Okay.
So that's
Thank you.
answering question 2. But we can go back to question number 1, Hrithik, if you want to give that answer.
Yeah, so these are the volume mount modes, which like I found a link to Alibaba Cloud, which explains this. So in this mode, which is directory or create, if no content is found in specified path, empty directory is created on demand. And the reason why we added this directory or create, because for the host path, this was already applied for the reticulum storage earlier. For the volume that we had by default, this was what was given before. So there are some more modes. For example, if you have directory, so in that case it won't be created, a new directory won't be created. You will have to it will search for what has which exists already.
Okay.
Hrithik, can I ask how you figured out you needed to have that?
Yeah, so that is what I was saying, that this was not added by me. It was something which was already there in the hcc.yml for reticulum.
Oh, I see. So if I go back to, am I able to see it in here?
Yeah,
Oh,
413.
here we go.
Uh,
Gotcha.
right, 412.
So you just copied all of the host path stuff just over here.
Yeah, because right now
Gotcha.
what we are doing, we are not trying to do anything very complex. We are just trying to move the life cycle from pod level to the node level. That's it.
Gotcha. I see. I see. Sorry, folks. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. I'm going to mute myself. Alrighty, I'm back. So Hrithik, maybe to test this out, I've logged in. My reticulum pod has respawned, and I don't see any errors in the logs here. Perhaps I can try and delete reticulum again and see if I stay logged in after the deletion and respawn completes.
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead.
So I'm deleting reticulum again. I'm going to wait for it to respawn.
You already have a reticulum just below that one. Was that the old one?
It was
Okay,
the old
no,
pod that was being terminated. Yeah.
replicating. Okay.
So just waiting for it to finish respawning.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. So I'm gonna refresh. I'm still logged in. If I go to admin and pop around
Yeah.
the
So,
tabs, I'm not getting logged out. So it seems like my token associated with my login is still good.
yeah, but I think like even after you're logged in, yes, you are now on the right. Like it's working. So your
Yep.
node is now out of that thing. But if the
Mhm.
node will be destroyed, your persistent volume will be destroyed too. So
If the node is, not the pod.
yeah, not the pod. So we have gotten a level up from the pod, and with this, there are several more solutions which we can have to raise the storage more above the nodes level. Like if we want to attach it to a node group, or if we want to keep it very isolated to a database or a NFS storage or a S3 bucket, we can do all of that. Uh,
I would love
so
to.
which
I don't know if we should do it in this session. I feel like that's maybe a topic that could consume an entire other session. But my hope is that with these weekly setup sessions, we might have you hop in another week to walk us through the setup on DigitalOcean. We might, but between those weeks where we're going to others, I'm kind of hoping that we can upgrade this instance to a full production level. Now, Hrithik, I did want to ask if we did have an external database using NSF, would we need persistent volumes?
yes, we would still need persistent volume. Sorry, we would need a persistent volume claim, and inside the persistent volumes, instead of the host path, we will specify the NFS values, whatever we want. So host path is what is using your data, which sorry, the storage.
Gotcha.
Whenever you get a EC2 instance with for your Kubernetes cluster, it is like a 2 vCPU, 4 GB RAM, and let's say like 40 GB of storage. So of that 40 GB storage, we are claiming like 10 gigs of storage and 10 gigs of storage, and assigning and giving a persistent volume claim for those volumes and attaching it to our pod. So persistent volume claim is destructible now with the pod, but your persistent volumes are now a part of your EC2 instance in case of your AWS or whatever compute instance we have. For example, in DigitalOcean, it's droplets, and in Google Cloud, it's compute. Uh, is that right, Michael?
Um, I'm actually not sure on
Google
that.
is, yeah. So like whatever compute VM, basically those are virtual machines, right? And those are compute VMs. So whatever compute VMs we need, uh, we can have them.
Hmm.
So but if you are planning to have like lots of visitors and all sorts of people, and you want to keep your data forever with you, you don't want to limit it to the node group, sorry, to the node. We have to understand that node is one EC2 instance or one compute VM.
Gotcha.
But a node group is collection of compute VMs. So with this, with the persistent volumes that we have set up, every node that is spent in the node group will have a different volume and a different. So it will, since it will have a different volume, if you delete the first node that you have in your node group, your data will be completely lost because you're storing it on uh, one node, right? So
Hmm.
to eliminate that, uh, that is to make the data to be node group specific, we can keep it in a S3 bucket or database or anywhere else. So we will still need the volumes, but we will not be using the storage space of the compute engine. If
Gotcha.
I explained that well, but Michael, if you could repeat that for the users, because I think I
Sure.
just confused a bit.
No, I think you did great. So it sounds like these PVCs that we're setting up, they are specific to the node, not they're not scoped to a full node group. Um, that's correct.
Right,
Okay.
right. Yes.
And I think I may have just even experienced that. So, Rithik, I was testing as you were speaking, and after restarting, also I see someone's moving around our screen. Please refrain from doing so, just so other folks can see. Okay. Um, but after respawning, I noticed that all of my spoke data was gone. Um, I wonder if this is
Okay.
because my pod respawned on a different node.
Yeah. Did you? Typically they respawn on the first node itself, but did you delete all the core turn and dialogue as well? Did you delete core turn as well?
So I've gone a little too fast, but for my testing, I just deleted Reticulum and PGSQL, and then after those respawned, my data was gone. And now I was just wanting to test another hypothesis, and so I just deleted all of my pods, and so they're all still coming back online. Sorry if that's a bit confusing. I went a few steps ahead of the group, I think.
Okay.
The health
So
or the
in,
well,
yeah, in that case, I think because the namespaces, everything from the namespaces gets deleted, that is why that data is, but that shouldn't be happening.
hmm.
Are you still signed in after your deletion?
I was. So it looks like it's finally. It looks like my reticulum is just having some trouble getting back up. But after refreshing, I was still connected.
Okay.
But
So let us wait for the reticulum to spin up.
okay.
Maybe like with that.
And welcome everyone else who's joined in. Let us know if you have any questions. We're working on getting persistent volumes set up. Okay, reticulum is back. I'm going to refresh here just on the main page. And it looks like uh, okay, so I'm not able to access admin, so I think maybe it did not work. Let's see in my reticulum logs. Hmm. Oh, no, I'm able to see it now. I wonder if it's just taking some time to get spun up. So I'm still logged in, Rithik. So that means that
Okay.
the reticulum persistent volume claim is working okay. However, if I go back to Spoke, I'm seeing something interesting. Um, all of my projects are deleted, and if I create a new project just with the same workflow, oh, my model is gone too. So it looks like I'm missing all of the data from Spoke now.
Oh, this is very interesting. Maybe we should check in our storage whether the persistent volume claim exists or not.
Hmm. Okay, so I
Like,
see.
did it? Okay, so yes, it is attached to this pod, and
Hmm. But
uh,
do those pods still exist? Oh, yep, those are the latest pods.
okay, and the volumes. Let's see for the volumes if uh, they are still in place. Um, okay. Uh, this seems like maybe a change of something because we did apply some changes. Actually, I'm not very sure around this why this problem might have occurred, but we can have a try once more to see if
Yeah, let's
uh,
test again.
because yes, because in place, reticulum is in place, which means that that is working correctly.
Okay, let's maybe walk through it again. So I've created a new spoke project and then I uploaded a GLB of this terrain crater. So that's hosted on devmoran.com. So I've hosted that locally. And now I'm going to publish. I'll give it the name Crater Test 1. Save and publish. So that's going to be exporting. Okay, great. So how should we test this? So it looks like everything is uploaded correctly, Hrithik. How should we test whether the PVCs are working?
Yeah, let us create a new room and let's see if the room ID changes as well. Like room ID is
Good call. So my room
actually
ID, just for everyone, is this.
okay.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
so now we can try to delete everything out and see if the room ID still exists.
Okay. So I'll delete. Maybe I'll do the command from the command line here just to be sure. kubectl delete pods dash dash all and then my namespace. Okay. So I'm gonna wait for all of these to delete.
Mhm.
Let's see if the pods are, well, I can look at my new pods in here.
Sure.
Looks like they're coming back online.
Mhm.
Okay. Reticulum is back, so where should I go? Maybe let's check login first. So I'll go to devmoran.com.
Yeah.
Okay. I still seem to be logged in. Let me check here. Although it's not letting me. Oh, there we go. So I'm able to access. It's moving slowly and giving me these weird errors, but it is working.
Okay. What server communication error?
Yeah, I haven't seen that before.
Postgres data provider Turkey schemas.
Well, let's check Spoke here. So devmoran.com / spoke. Okay, I can see my project. I'm going to open it. Everything works okay. Now let me try and join my room ID. So I'm going to grab that from the chat.
Mhm. This is very strange.
Okay. Well, I'm everything worked. Should we try doing it again just to see if it is more of a game of chance that's causing this?
Yes, yes. I think we should try to keep it offline for some time.
Gotcha. So
Uh,
maybe I'll. What would be the best way to spin down my replica sets? Or
sure, I think I haven't tried that yet, but uh,
look, know that
maybe
Kieran.
for me also it would have been a fair chance where it worked.
Mhm. Well, let's try this.
The fact that your room ID is still in place and also with the spoke scene for this time it worked. That is what we can conclude.
Yes, for this time
And
it did.
yeah, this time it did.
Okay, so I'm trying to use this that Kieran documented. Oh,
Okay, so Rainy has a doubt uh, in the chat. I've noticed that all pods are deployments or replica sets. Since PGSQL is a stateful application, do you know if we would need to switch to stateful sets in case we had more pod replicas?
so I don't know, Renee. I would say typically our recommendation is you should, if you want this to be production ready, to use an external database rather than the PGSQL pod. Um, so
Mhm.
that might be an. I don't know exactly what you mean about more pod replicas. It makes me think that you are trying to scale up for a more production ready instance. Is that right? Oh, Renee, sorry, I can't hear you. If you want to come a little bit closer, where are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're a bit quiet, but I'm moving my avatar closer to you.
Okay. Yeah, the question, maybe that's also the problem, because when you have multiple pods, I've read somewhere that if you have a stateful application, like a database, should need stateful sets instead of replica sets. Because maybe the it could be at this point that your app is pointing to the wrong pod if you have two replicas of your Postgres database. And it created the scene in the one Postgres but not in the other one. And if you don't use stateful sets, it might be that it's not getting synchronized. If you know what I mean.
Hrithik, have you looked into that at all?
Uh, no, actually, I have just heard about uh, stateful sets, but not very clearly. So right now, yes, we are actually using replica sets, and with replica sets, the best benefit what I know about is your whenever something fails, it replicates again. Maybe that's what the name also indicates. But a stateful set comes with the persistent storage uh, volume. So whenever we have something as stateful, it means that our data reading, writing, and everything is it comes with the pod, and the data is stored externally. like a database. So if we see this article where it says replica sets help manage traffic by scaling your application to have multiple instances of the same pod, while deployments provide added functionality such as rolling updates, rollback, and version control. Stateful sets are used to manage stateful applications, and daemon ensure that all or a subset of nodes run a copy of pod. Understanding difference between each set type is useful to understand which one to use in which scenario. So for us, we already have this thing sorted out in our hcc.yml. If you want to use some more different types, that is provided in the helm charts, I guess. uh, Maybe for regarding help charts, Alex would be the right person to ask.
Okay, so does that mean that stateful sets probably come in when you have multiple nodes and your pods are spread all over multiple nodes?
Uh, Actually, if I try to answer, I would be only guessing that stateful sets are when you have your da- uh, like when we need a persistent volume. I think in that case we will have to change our replica set to stateful set. So your question takes us to our solution in a way that uh, right now we are using replica sets. We will have to change it to stateful sets for that to maintain the
I
storage.
guess it's only relevant if you have multiple pods. If you have only one pod for each application, it probably wouldn't matter. This is how I understand it, but I'm absolutely not sure about it.
Okay. We all will have to research on it a bit more.
Just for testing, I have done one more delete of all of my pods to see what happens after they come back up. I just wanted to see what happens there.
Okay.
So it looks like everything's still coming up okay. I'm getting the server communication error. Let's see if I can look more into that.
Mhm.
Hmm. Not seeing too much on the server communication error. It looks like it's only when it's querying media or data, like going to the app settings, the themes, everything that just kind of uploads data doesn't pull it down. Looks to be fine. If I go back to Spoke here, still have my project, still have my object. And if I grab my hub ID again, should be able to navigate there. Yeah. So Hrithik, it looks to be working. We could continue to kind of delete and then bring them back up to see if it is just luck that it's working. Um,
Um, mhm.
what do you think?
Yeah, like I have tested it several times. So like in my findings that I came across earlier, I saw that I was always logged out. So for that, I dig deep into it, and I found that Reticulum also has this storage and which needed to be fixed.
Hmm.
So like this is a thing that I've tested with multiple use case scenarios and whatever I could to ensure that the persistent volumes is working correctly.
Hmm.
Uh, but the thing that we are seeing right now with the server connection error, I think that it is also something related to what we might have misconfigured, because I haven't got that issue yet, but uh, if it is showing up, maybe there are chances that it could be happening. Or should it be that after we apply persistent volume and persistent volume claims, we should be deleting all the pods, signing out, and then creating everything on our servers to ensure
Yeah,
that oh, it's working.
yeah, it's working just fine now. So
Okay, so maybe it
a little
was just
strange.
taking time.
Yeah,
Okay.
strange. Give it enough time and it'll figure itself out. But it looks to be working now, especially since I'm able to grab stuff related to my scene here. Hey, 1 second, everybody.
Perfect.
Sorry, everyone. There was someone at the door. Um, but Hrithik, it looks like it's doing well now. Um, so hopefully that is the case. I'm trying to look through a little bit more. I know someone asked Hrithik to be able to see kind of the storage and usage of these 10 gigabytes. I would have to look in the Google Cloud console, right?
Okay. I think if you go to your, we will have to do uh, just like we'll have to look inside the pod,
Hmm.
not into the pod actually. Sorry, we will have to look inside the node to
Hmm.
see where what data is being stored and how much we are using it.
So I'm
I
looking
did
in
the
there right now. Let me see.
okay, yeah.
All right. So I think you're right. I would have to look into the cluster itself. But here, just kind of in GKE, I go to storage and then I'm able to look at my PVCs and my PVs. I'm gonna pull up the cluster now to see what I can see.
Mhm.
So here's my cluster itself. Um, Maybe if I look at the nodes, I'm able to see in here. Probably best to look in storage, actually. Um, okay, so I can see
Okay.
my. What's up?
Yeah, we can see the persistent volumes directly in Google Cloud. I didn't knew that. Okay.
Hmm. I'm trying to see if there's anything on usage, though. Maybe it would be under observability if I go to persistent storage.
Okay. I saw few numbers.
Yeah, I see persistent storage metrics not enabled. I'm not going to go ahead and enable them in this environment, but perhaps that would be a way to go deeper is to go to observability, storage. Oh, here we go. Here's some stuff on it. Alrighty. Yeah. And this is just ephemeral actually, so this is not persistent storage.
And since in our each node we we get around like 50 GB of storage, we can allocate 25 GBs as well,
Hmm.
just for a safer side to take the full potential out of it.
Gotcha. Alrighty. I just wanted to see what we could see in there. Go back here. Okay. Um, Hrithik, oh, I see Imaginer has a question. What's the main use case for storing persistent volumes at the node level? So I think that's a good question, Imaginer, of like, how would we
Yeah,
describe that instance that we've set up so far, this devmoran.com instance? Like, at what point in the setup process have we reached? And I would kind of describe it as a experimental server plus plus. We've added a custom client with some a pipeline for continuing to be able to publish. It's not a fully built out, development pipeline for publishing to production, but we do have a system that allows us to publish custom versions and build custom versions of our clients. We've added extra customizations like API keys and content security policies. So all of that is great. We have added persistent volumes, which allow us when we are recycling our pods, when we're deleting and continuing to apply updates, our data is able to persist somewhat. So, like Rithik has said, if I deleted my cluster, that would be big. But if I deleted any of the nodes within my cluster, that would still probably delete the data that's now being stored on the node. So if I can illustrate on it, we've done the hard work of moving the data from the pod, type here, to our node. And I think the next step that we haven't completed yet, well, we did when we set up with Alex, but would be to move outside of our node and even outside of our cluster to an external database.
one thing I would like to add here, just for our understanding, is uh, while we moved the data from the pod to node, we had no extra cost. But
Yeah,
when we do it to external DB, we will have an extra cost. Yeah.
yeah, that's a very good point. So, Rithik, we've almost made better use. I'll pin these in the space. We've made better use of our node. We're leveraging it by using persistent volumes because nodes, these virtual machines, they have some data allocated towards them. And up until this point, we weren't really using that to its full advantage. Now, with this setup with persistent volumes, we're leveraging what we're already paying for. But as Hrithik said, once you start to get into full production costs and the external database, that's where you have to provision even more resources than we currently have set up. So I think this is for those people who are still kind of hacking around with their own instances and don't expect to have a ton of users on them and want to maintain costs. This is a really great way to cut down on those. I think I'll share my personal costs. I'm not going to share my screen with them, but let me pull up my. I have in my personal projects, I've set up a instance using Alex's Helm chart. I'm going to share kind of the first month cost running these. Yeah, I agree with Hrithik there. This would be a fully set up production instance, or not production, sorry. It is not a fully set up production instance. It would be a good candidate for a fully set up development instance.
But the fact that we are if we are serving like let's say if you have at max you will be getting 60 70 users or something like that, and you spin up one node according to that capacity, so then you don't have to worry about uh, those things. Only thing is while you scale up and scale down you will lose it. So with that being said, it's not a production instance. Like
Mhm.
even on your production instance you don't want to lose your data uh, when you do upgrades to your server. So uh, Michael will show us a better version for this. Like
Mhm.
we will do it however it's possible.
Mhm. I'm just writing out kind of the cost estimates for this month of what I've paid, and I'm happy to kind of share that for you. Uh, Okay. So these are kind of the big ticket items here. And right now it's running me about $200 a month to maintain. And I should also say the majority of the time my EC2 instances are off. I use my auto scaling group to set my desired nodes to zero. So for most of the time, my EC2 instances are turned off. When they are turned on, I think I use, let me see what I use. Yeah, I use T3 small for these. Um, so I use three TC small instances, usually T3 small instances when I've uh, got my database online. Also, RDS, I set my RDS to paused whenever I'm not developing. So it's pretty expensive for a server that's only turned on every now and again. I'm not very cost optimized here. Um, but we can see that, and this is in AWS. So ECS, that is Elastic Container Service, um, load balancer, VPC, um, all of those are kind of the piping that you need to set up managed Kubernetes, I would say. RDS and EC2, those are your actual instances that are for storage and compute that you're paying for. So ECS is actually quite expensive as a portion here. And that's just kind of comes with the managed Kubernetes uh, framework. But if in for this instance, I do need an external database setup. That's very important for this project. However, if I were setting up a development server, I would just set up persistent volumes instead, and I could cut off a significant portion of my monthly bill. Questions?
So,
I was yeah, go ahead, Imagine.
So just to be clear, those costs you listed there for a production-ready instance,
Yes.
not the development instance we set up in this session.
So the instance, the cost that I've shared here, I followed Alex's personal Helm chart setup guide on AWS, but I made a few customizations. Number one, in that demo, I think Alex recommends setting your instances to C5 large for your EC2 instances. I've set mine to T3 small. It's much smaller than Alex suggests. Um, Adjustment number two, I manually will pause my EC2 instances and my RDS instance whenever I'm not working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard someone say he's running a production setup. It's probably around 450 a month in that big scale.
Yeah, definitely my EC2 cost is very low because I don't have my server running too often. But if I did, my bill would probably, Renee, be closer to that. And that's why I would consider production something that you need 100% uptime right now. Yeah, thanks, Hrithik. Subtle plug for Alex here. But this all goes back to leveraging what you're already paying for. And I think, you know, since we're still in the early days of Community Edition, it's very possible you could do this. Like I could set up my instance on a T3 small that's only running two instances, or maybe even one with just a larger machine type, as Alex and others have said coming in here. Um, your machine type can specify a number of pods. I think there is just a little bit more expertise and tweaking and adjusting that you need to do to get those cost saving benefits. It's not the numbers that I've shared here, I would not consider as the minimum cost. I think you can probably go much lower uh, for kind of a fully uptime, personal production ready instance.
Yeah, I'm trying to currently do that on a cloud provider called Civo, and cluster there, including load balancer and stuff, and external volumes would in total probably below 100 a month.
Whoa, very good.
It wouldn't be it would not probably be as big as a C5 large instance on AWS, but I would probably consider it kind of production ready in
Mm-hmm.
terms of what it has included. Obviously, if you have like 1,000 people, you would need to scale it up too. But what it's very different is you don't have to pay for the managing node. So you only pay for the worker nodes, and the managed node is outside of your cluster. And if you have um, a big node with a lot of compute power, like 16 gigabytes of RAM and 8 core, it's only about $50 a month,
Wow.
and that's quite cool. And that's why I try so badly to set it up there, but I didn't manage it yet because yeah, you also have to deal with the networking stuff, and that's what I was asking you sometime. Um, yeah, if somebody had
Gotcha.
some yeah, some knowledge about this, because I haven't figured it out yet.
Do you know, is it, I would assume it's considered a managed Kubernetes environment, yes?
Yes, it's completely managed. So
Cool.
when
So
you
the free control plane is awesome
yeah,
to be able to
control
get with that.
planes, you do not have control over the control plane, but you can add you on the cloud console, you can add applications like Prometheus and something like that, which would install on the control plane then. Um, Possibly when you deploy it through kubectl2, I'm not sure, I haven't tried, but what I got working and it worked well is to set up lens on it.
Hmm.
Um, and the load balancer gets provisioned automatically too when you put in the annotations correctly, and a load balancer is $10 a month.
Hmm.
And yeah, so actually it's kind I got pretty far in it and it went very well, but at the point it stopped at the point when I tried to access it and tried to get my email, my account mail. Then the reticulum pod said it's not working, even though SMTP was set up correctly and everything. So, but must be
Oh,
to
interesting.
I must have to do something with the internal networking. That was because I noticed that some cluster IPs do not get provisioned for the main pods like Reticulum. So maybe I don't know if you can share this here, but if you could do a kubectl services on your instance.
Yeah. Well, I could look at it through Lens or through this. So in Lens, I can see all of these. Which one are you looking for?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's enough already. No, Reticulum has not a plus cluster IP applied. Oh yeah, okay. So I was wondering about this because why do dialog hubs and Reticulum not get cluster IPs? Is this because they are seen by the outside or
I actually don't
probably?
even see.
Yeah, and the cluster IP, yes, that one. There's no internal IP address. And I was wondering about this, but it seems to be like this. It seems to be correct. So, well, okay. Yeah, I'll keep on going with this, and I'll share my experience as soon as I get further.
Thank you, Renee. I think many people would appreciate your experience. You know, it's. I would encourage everyone to shop around for other providers like Kivo, not that aren't AWS or GCP, not just because they are very large companies, but also because you are likely to find a better deal somewhere else, somewhere that is more, caters to specific use case or a specific subset of developers. It's very likely GCP and AWS, they're these huge shops that it's like Walmart. Walmart has everything. Um, but it's very likely you could find a more specialized one that will give you a better deal on what you're paying for. Cool. Um, Rithik, thank you so much for hopping in and lending us your knowledge about this. Um, I, hopefully we have some time to go over how to set up on DigitalOcean. Is that something you'd want to do next week, or would you want to maybe do that a week in the future?
Yeah,
Next week.
next week would be best for
Oh,
me. Yeah.
cool, cool. So maybe next week we can dive into DigitalOcean, another kind of, and we can hopefully do some cost comparison there with what I've seen over here. But Rithik, would that guide also include how we set up an external database, or would we just be setting up kind of what we've gotten to today, a fully set up development instance?
Okay, so I was looking into setting up block storage with DigitalOcean or any other S3 bucket compatible storage, but I haven't been able to get there.
No
Uh,
worries.
yeah,
Have you
but
gotten
that sounds
have you gotten
easy.
PVs? Have you gotten PVs working on DigitalOcean?
Yeah, this is working on DigitalOcean, and like I got because it's the same thing. It's same Kubernetes. It runs. If it runs on one platform, it's sure that it runs on other platform as well. Uh, only difference is about the speed and the things. Like with DigitalOcean, we get 80 GB of storage, which is 30 GB more than what you get on uh, AWS for a
Yeah.
T3. micro.
Cool. So let's try and next week set up basically the same kind of instance that we've gotten to today, but let's try and do it on DigitalOcean.
Yeah, and so
If we can do
Imagineer
that
comes.
in 2 hours, I feel like that would be incredible to get done.
Yes, I think next week we should try to get this managed storage. Like, let's try to get our uh, development instance close to a production instance by moving the data from the node to the external database. And with that, setting up Kubernetes would be on DigitalOcean could be a further session. Like,
Oh, so
uh,
maybe next week we should work on this same instance going to an external database, and another week we would do DigitalOcean. That's what you're saying?
yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
gotcha. Um, cool. I think we could probably do that. I think Hrithik, it would be a great help if you're able to kind of help set that up, and if you have the know-how to do that on GCP. I'm just thinking about my time. We're releasing the data download tool, and so there's a lot of work for me to do there. So I don't know if I'll be able to do a ton of preparation for next week. So if you're available, Hrithik, to help out with that, that would be a great help to me.
Yeah, definitely. I will take that up, and because creating a database with the managed storage would be pretty straightforward and easy.
Yeah. All right. Um, I'll answer Imaginer's question, and then I'm going to start getting wrapped up for today. Imaginer, can you share the approximate costs for what we've set up today, the development instance? Imaginer, I could. I don't know if I have time to kind of go through and really segment it out. The instance I've created gets billed to kind of a big lump billing within Mozilla. So I would have to do a little bit more, I'd have to tag certain resources and go through. So I can do it. I don't know if it's going to be I don't think I'm going to get to it this week though.
Okay, thank you.
Gotcha.
No worries.
Uh,
Awesome.
Although, like, I could give a estimation on this. I can try to 24 into 30.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording now if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect.